Once again, good evening and welcome to all the participants. This is 155th session of WiseViews Leadership Conversations. And please welcome Miss Babita Baruah, who has joined us. Good evening, ma'am. Welcome to this conversation.
Good evening.
I will do a brief introduction and then request you to start your opening remarks. Allow me to share my screen, please. WiseViews Leadership Conversations is on 155 today with Ms. Babita Baruah speaking about the adapting to change that is being displayed by advertising agencies, especially in this digital era. This is going to be a very, very interesting conversation. After this introduction, the speaker will take about 20 minutes to put forth her opening remarks, and then we'll have 40 minutes of Q&A in two clusters. I take this opportunity, it's my privilege to introduce Ms. Babita. She has over 25 years of marketing and advertising expertise. She is currently the CEO for VML India. Previously, Ms. Babita led the WPP's Ford International Market Group across an array of international markets, including Australia, New Zealand, Thailand, India, the Middle East, and South Africa. She also served a dual role as an executive director at VML Thailand, as she was increasingly involved beyond Ford in leveraging the agency's strengths for growth. Ms. Babita's professional journey commenced as a management trainee at Wunderman Thompson in India, where she dedicated her efforts from 1996 to 2022. That's pretty long, very good. Ms. Babita's portfolio in WT was a mix of global and local businesses from PepsiCo, Unilever, Nestle, Kellogg's, to Godrej, Kotak Mahindra, Reliance, and Aditya Birla. In addition to her role, she has had the privilege of serving as a British Evening Scholar, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, sharing insights as a speaker at institutions like Harvard Business School, the Women Economic Forum in Geneva, and is a mentor for young professionals as part of WPP Stella India. Her unwavering passion lies in modern marketing and transformation, leveraging the nexus of consumer behavior, culture, technology for innovative solutions that generate growth and equity. Ms. Babita has had the privilege of winning, as I mentioned earlier, the British Evening Scholarship in 2004 for a Women in Leadership course in the UK. Fantastic, ma'am. Thank you very much for agreeing to speak with us this evening. I will also take 1 minute to introduce my esteemed colleague, Professor Dr. R. Prasad. He is the Senior Director of Academic Wing at ICFAI Group. He brings with himself a rich experience of 3 decades as an entrepreneur, as an academic, and a corporate professional all put together. He holds BTech from IIT Bombay and PGDM from IIM Kolkata. Welcome, Professor Prasad. Thank you very much. And I'll stop sharing the screen now. We are all ears, ma'am. We've been waiting to have this conversation with you. I'm quite impressed with the journey that you have made over the last 25 years. You are a role model to many aspiring professionals in advertising career. And over to you. I'll stay muted and admirably will listen to you. Thank you and welcome once again.
Thank you so much. It's a real privilege. Thank you, Dr. Prasad. And of course, thank you, Mr. Rao. I'm just checking the time. So I've got 15 minutes, you said, right, to talk about this?
20 minutes, ma'am.
20 minutes. Okay. So thank you very much. This is a subject after my heart. You're right. I've worked all my life in one organization, and that is WPP. And in that, like you said, my journey with Wunderman Thompson, earlier known as JWT, was, till 2022. Then I moved to VML YNR, and I was in Thailand for 3 years. And I've just come back to the country again in what has been a unified new agency formed as a unification of Wunderman Thompson and VML YNR. So it's come together to form VML. And that's the company that I'm leading in India. So a little bit, the introduction has already happened, but just for everybody, I come from Assam, and I've done my education there, including MBA. And after that, of course, the introduction was already done. So let me jump straight in. When I joined the world of advertising, and in those days, it was really advertising industry, an advertising agency. It was called HTA, and I joined in the Calcutta office. And quintessential ad agency had lots of people in the studio. Everything was done by hand. There was a lot of art. There was a lot of copy. most of the work were print ads in newspapers, in local papers, in national papers. Most of it were outdoors, and the outdoors in those days were hand painted, you know. And today, when I look at where are we really in communications, first of all, we don't even use the word advertising anymore. It's become communications. And the channels of engagement have become so many, multitudes. So just number of TV channels, number of registered FM stations, the number of digital channels and platforms have really gone to thousands now. And this has therefore brought about a choice that we couldn't dream of until a few years ago. Also, in addition to that, we've had a strong resurgence or insurgence rather of data. Resurgence because we were always a very insight-driven industry. The best of our communication came when we got deep into the consumer's shoes, we understood consumer behavior. But today, we've got a resurgence of that in the form of, again, focus on what is an insight, what is a changing behavior, except that today we are highly data informed. And because we are data informed, we can go to various data sources, we can go to single sources of truth when required, and we can come up with it. So let me start by saying or sharing with you what are some of the changes that are happening in the world of communications. And then I will go to what are some of the ways in which agencies are overcoming or addressing these changes. And then we can do the Q&A. So first of all, in terms of what are really the changes? The first one, number one, the media landscape is really undergoing a change, and I just mentioned it. Today, when I ask the question to myself and to all of you as to what is really a channel, your answer will be that it is no longer a television or a print or an outdoor or even a YouTube or a digital. Today, it could be a window where we project something. It could be a slice of bread or a roti where we print something or we project something. It could be the consumer himself or herself who's a walking, talking emblem of a channel. And we know that today's influencers do exactly that. Who are the influencers today? Are they only the celebrities that we were used to? Bollywood, cricket? Definitely not. Today's influencers are people who sit next to you, next door neighbors, people who are from big cities, who are from the smallest of towns, who just have a phone. And in that, they have become strong influencers either through their blogs or their point of view that are expressed in certain ways or through creativity. And brands are going very quickly to jump onto the bandwagon and see how can we use them as our spokesperson, as our channel. So therefore, the definition of media and how can we really connect and at what point do we connect to our consumers has undergone a change. So today, it is no longer about a brand pushing communication out. It is about a consumer pulling the communication that really appeals to them. And the competition for us as an agency is not about what another agency has done or what another brand has done. The competition is about the content which somebody is consuming. Today, if I have an ad or a campaign, I'm competing with a YouTube blogger, I'm competing with a Netflix channel, I'm competing with any OTT content which is out there. And that is how it has changed. I'm competing with AI-generated content. That is how things have changed. So that is the first change. The second one is a change in consumer behavior and the way the consumer consumes communication from brand. Earlier, it was a very one-way communication, right? So the brand advertises and communicates, people see it. We assume some people would have seen it. It was mostly a very carpet bombing thing, and it worked because that is how brands were built. And then there was a gap between really measuring how much of that spend that I did on a communication really converted into sales. You couldn't do that. There were mathematical models that were used, projections which were used, but there was no connect because it was not data driven, right? There were silos. We have an outdoor and then there is a dealership or a shop. How will you connect? I have seen that outdoor, something has influenced me, and therefore now I have to go and buy the ad. There was no way in which you could do it. Even now, a lot of it is also mathematical modeling, but there are enough ways in which we can attribute it. The consumer behavior has also changed in terms of engagement with brands. Earlier, and I have worked on beverage brands, I still work on one, these brands were the cool quotient. The shoes I wear, the drink I drink, a beverage drink, or a t-shirt I wear, a bag I create, they are my cool, they make me look cool, right? But today, for a lot of, especially Gen Z, digital natives, the brand has become one of us. So people talk to brands when you are on a social platform. You engage with brands as if the brand is a friend. You don't necessarily always have a brand that is a badge that makes you look aspirational or status driven. Of course, a lot of brands do that, and that is a role, but that is not necessarily the role of a brand anymore. That's the second change, consumer behavior. The third one, which I've alluded to, is the availability of data and therefore performance metrics. Today, we can actually measure a lot of what we do on communications, something which was not available earlier. And because we can measure, a lot of what we do is ROI driven, which means you can actually have a set of matrices that are measurable before we start work to say, okay, how do we define success for this particular project? How do we define your growth problem for you? Advertising agencies wouldn't talk like that earlier, right? But today we are getting more into the business side of it. And then we look at how do we really measure success? What are 2 or 3 parameters that we will sort of, put targets against, put goals against in terms of numbers? And then we see what is the roadmap to meet those numbers. The last change, but a very critical one, of course, is technology, MarTech, and recently Gen AI. And there's a lot of debate in the industry as to what happens when Gen AI is more widely embraced. Is it that Gen AI writes the copy or creates an ad, and therefore what is really the role of, ad industries, strategists, etc.? So these are now the 5 changes. I'll quickly recap again: changing media landscape, consumer behavior change, availability of matrices for measurement, and of course, Gen AI. Now, if I look at, therefore, agencies overall, and when I say agencies, honestly, it is also the marketing industry, because we are part of that industry, right? We are a subset of that. One of the first things that is required is actually a change in culture and a change in mindset. And this change in culture comes from being a more outcome-driven, creativity-led, a lot of it led by gut feel, which is still very important, to a mindset which is about growth, a mindset which is about agility, a mindset which talks about we will perfect as we go along. We were not used to things like agility before. We were used to having enough time to perfect what we did. But today, it is really about how soon can I get things out to a consumer, because we can correct things as we go along. The digital world allows us to do that. And that means a change in mindset. That means a change in the way clients and agencies also engage with each other to say, who is really the final approver? How many people are we empowering in the chain of approvals to say, if you need agility, surely it can't be the old ways of 3 rounds of presentation, present to level 1, then to level 2, then we go to the senior most person and we come that. Today, it is really about a different way of how briefs are issued and how approvals happen. So the culture of an organization today has therefore become one which is highly driven by productivity. And along with productivity comes the second change, which is the digital evolution today calls for a lot of collaboration and partnerships. Earlier, it is not that agencies did not partner, but the partnerships were limited to, for example, I've worked on beauty brands where we would partner with, say, a fashion designer. We would partner with, say, a hairstylist. We would partner with, say, a celebrity. Those were the partnerships. And in those days, it worked well. Today, a partnership, like I said, could be with an influencer. It could be with a platform. It could be with another brand where 2 brands who are on similar grounds can get together. So this whole collaboration and the sense of, I don't need to hold on to what is my territory, but I will bring all partners that are required to come up with a solution. That is really that change in the agency thing. So just to give you an example, supposing I work again on a beauty brand, okay, any beauty brand, and there's a brief. My first thing will be, do I only look at just within my agency? Okay, these are the people who can now create it. Or do I now sit and look at who are the best people within my system who can work on it? And I bring that team together. Around that team, I look outside the agency. Who are the specialists who we can get in? Maybe people who can influence, people who are associated with it. For example, like I said, is it a fashion designer? Is it an influencer? Is it a blogger? Is it somebody who, again, depending on the market we are targeting, is it a local tailor there who's really made a name for herself or himself by doing that? So the deeper we go into what is the ecosystem we are tapping into as collaborators, the higher our chance of success. You know, I have a friend, both of us work in the ad agency, and her daughter, in fact, this happened during COVID. So she just wore, one of these Western apparels. She just wore it and she started shooting. She had a long mirror in the room and she started clicking herself. So pretty much like use your phone and you click yourself, same thing. The next day she wore another thing and she clicked herself. So it was a very nicely, same mirror, same phone pose, and did that. Within a month or so, she got a huge box of wardrobe from that brand that she was wearing. And now she's become, that brand, by the way, is a Western brand. I think it's from the UK or something. She's become one of the top influencers out of India for them globally. She stays in Gurgaon. I've seen her as a little girl. She just started off doing it during COVID. So now think from that brand's point of view. In that brand, the data is so well connected that they picked up the fact that this girl's followers are increasing, that her posts and what she's wearing about them, because she would have tagged them, is increasingly gaining ground. She's from a country which is getting into fashion in a big way. Let's sort of make her an influencer. Let's send her these free clothes, etc. and all of. Now I don't know what her deal is with them, but I'm talking about at that time. The other example is from India. So I write a lot of blogs, and I wrote one blog which was called "A Sugar-Coated Biscuit and Lessons from Life." And somehow that blog, that story rather, got a lot of traction on LinkedIn. And again, within a couple of months, one of the top biscuit brands in the country sent me a pack of biscuits with a note. We really loved what you wrote. You referred to a sugar-coated biscuits, and we have a brand, very happy for you to use it. Now, what happens when somebody does that? A, as a person, I'm overwhelmed. Wow, somebody noticed me as a brand and has sent me something. B, naturally, I will talk about it in my circles, in my social media, because that's gratitude, right? I feel elated, I feel celebrated, and I'll do that. That is how brands are now targeting very, very personalized influencers or people who feel they can do that. That is the difference between what was done before and what is done now. So that's the second change, very, very personalized. The third one, when it comes to agencies, and therefore, so first of all, we spoke about a culture change. The second one we talked about is who is really this agile team, right? Is it just your old team, or are we looking outside? The third thing is now we have two stacks in every agency, right? We have a human stack and we have a technology stack. And both these stacks are, because of various reasons, there's a lot of debate in the industry as to, are these stacks really required to work together? Will one overtake the other? What is the role of the human stack versus the technology stack? And in my experience, and what we are also doing in our organizations, it is very clear that both the stacks have a very important role to play. The human stack has a very important role in understanding, in insights, in really getting under the skin of consumers to understand what is the behavior change, what does the brand need, how can we get different, platforms, ecosystems, players together. And the technology stack then takes this and blows it out in terms of scale, in terms of, creativity, in terms of options, etc. So my humble belief is really an opinion is it can only enhance the work that a human stack used to do. And it empowers a lot of people. Today, a creative person could be anybody who just writes to us perhaps and says, I saw your work and this is what I've written. And if it works well, the confidence to be able to accept it and to go with it is very critical. So therefore, that brings me to one of the last points, which we can never forget. I think brands are built on the power of storytelling. And storytelling has started since the time as cavemen, we sat around a fire and we exchanged stories, to today, where what we do finally is about stories. We just talk stories. Everything about a brand is about a story. What has changed is the way we communicate that story, the way we reach out to people with that story. But the power of storytelling, the ability to connect with people through a human emotion, that has not changed. And if we make a mistake of ever feeling that there is no role for storytelling, I'll only go with data and technology and I'll come out something, that will soon, I'll be harsh and provocative to say, it'll sound a death knell for a brand because it doesn't work that way. So some things are really, really eternal. A human insight, understanding human behavior, coming up with a powerful story, coming up with how do we reach the right people at the right time with the story. These are things that haven't changed. But one thing that marketers and ad agencies are increasingly cognizant of and are moving towards is the embracing of MarTech. Because without MarTech at the core, a lot of these discussions that are happening today will not fructify. So that's basically what we are going through today. It's a time where, it's one of the novels, which is my favorite novel, right? Tale of Two Cities, which began with, it's the best of times and it's the worst of times. And I must say, it's not the worst of times, but these are times where a lot of people also question, do I have the skills necessary to deliver to the kind of work that is required today? So for agencies, upskilling, certification is very, very important. Earlier, we were just about training programs. Today, we are actually talking about certified training programs. We are talking about how do we recast roles so that people can get, that confidence to talk this new language, to be able to walk the talk. It's also about where are we hiring people from? Where are our talent pools? Are we hiring from the same sources or are we looking at new grounds? So for example, sometimes, earlier we would never as an ad agency perhaps look at an e-commerce brand to hire people. Today we look at that because e-commerce is increasingly becoming a part of what we do because we provide end-to-end solutions. So I teach in a lot of educational institutions. You must know that if you go to my LinkedIn, I have so many students as my followers. I do a lot of mentoring also on weekends. And this is one of the things that I leave my students with, which is change is the only constant. We know that. Today, I feel, we talk so much about change. We talk so much about technology. We talk so much about Gen AI that somewhere we start questioning our values and our own worth. What job will I get when I do this? Am I doing the right course? Am I in the right institute? And I think we should get over it because there is nothing that can take the place of a very well-educated, well-informed, somebody who has deep knowledge and somebody who becomes a subject matter expert. And technology then just comes in to help us enhance what we do. So this is pretty much what I had for today. I am very much on time, I think 3 minutes early, and I'm very happy to take questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. It's such an interesting way that you have captured the changing landscape of advertising industry. The summary or the common thread I see is that it has several points which have redefined the changing role of advertising agencies in one way. The redefinition is in terms of the way the agencies have perceived themselves vis-a-vis the other things that are changing in the environment, especially the way you have defined the competition to yourself. The competition is much larger now in the new definition. The way we look at the relationship between the marketer, brand, and the agency and the consumer is completely different now, as opposed to what it used to be probably 15 years before. The advent of MarTech can be chronicled as 15 years at best, but AI is probably a couple of years or 3-4 years that is trying to embrace MarTech and make it much more effective, much more efficient, so on and so forth. Equally challenging as well as we grapple with the new outcomes of AI-enabled MarTech. The way the content is dished out all the while from a brand to a consumer is no longer relevant, in the sense that it is not a unidirectional, it is multidirectional. Probably anybody can do that. The established icons of what we have thought Bollywood heroes or film or cricket or any other established names as icons who would become influencers is also now undergoing rapid change, because you have multiple resource persons coming up as influencers. They need not be from any established industry. They could be one single individual from any small town around the world. This is amazing. The way it is changing. I'll make this one point and then we'll start the Q&A. Is that advertising agencies have always made sure that the right brain went in love with the left. Have always done that. But today, I think I think it is much more palpable. It is much more essential, and therefore they are wearing it on the sleeve. And it is a lesson for all of us how the changing trends can impact any industry for that matter. Insight is extremely important. Gut feeling is equally important. But how do you marry these two has only resulted in some wonderful campaigns, at the same time looking at the outcome-based efforts that agencies have put forth. For lack of technology, which led to lack of measurement, which led to lack of accountability and responsibility for the campaign that we ran, from that scenario to a scenario where everything is measurable, therefore all of us are much more accountable, but the job itself is so challenging and enjoyable. It looks like we are not an extended arm of any marketer, but we are a marketer in true sense. I think that the responsibility is taken in so much manner that it is not to blame the marketer for lack of any brief. I think it is reversing now. More and more suggestions, more and more consultative approach is happening from the agencies to the marketer, and then that's why we see wonderful campaigns happening in this digital era. I think with these opening remarks, we are fully ready for some wonderful questions, ma'am. I'll request Prasad to start the Q&A with the first cluster. I'll come back for the second one. And during the second one, we'll open the mic for the participants to ask one or two direct questions to you. Thank you very much, ma'am. Over to you, Professor Prasad.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Rao. Thank you, ma'am, for introducing the subject of change in the sector so well, and coming from where you have and your Calcutta experience to begin with and before the Assam and what you're talking about right now. I think you've seen it all, and therefore my first question starts there. Can you illustrate a key challenge in adapting to change that you've faced in your career, and more so as a leader, and how did you handle it?
Look, we are thank you. First of all, I truly sort of appreciate this opportunity. We are a people industry, and I keep, I've said this to clients many times over conversations to say that we don't own a factory or we don't make a product. Our people are our products, like any other, people-centric industry. So the challenge also therefore comes from our people and the talent force. And this challenge has actually come in recent times, I must say, with this crossover of what can technology do or replace when it comes to what people used to do. And I'll talk about automation, and I'm not talking about Gen AI, simple automation. So just to give an example, earlier we had, a lot of people who used to do, say, data entry, so it was labor intensive. And we would look at big teams that were housed in very cost optimized centers who would do this basic data segmentation, etc. for us. Today, as all of you would know here, that is the basis of simple automation, right? So what happens to an organization's culture, and what happens to the workforce that we have, and the responsibility we perhaps have towards a larger workforce? And this brings us to this whole thing of the ability to understand what are the opportunities to reskill within the industry, and what are the opportunities in which we identify who are the right people in that. Because after all, it's a business. Everybody for various reasons will not be able to either be recast into new roles or be able to reskill. So I think for every leader, and now that I'm sitting as a CEO here, the role of people, what we used to call HR earlier, and we've redefined that role as people. We call it people officer, etc., has become critical. And that is the biggest challenge and also the biggest opportunity that I have faced. Today, when I look at the talent pool, Dr. Prasad, we feel that the talent pool is a mix that we didn't have even 5 years ago. It has, for example, data scientists, it has mathematicians, it has graphic designers, it has cinematographers, it has graphic artists. These were people or roles that we even have prompt engineers today because we've, started working with Gen AI. We didn't have these roles earlier, right? Now, does it mean that we have doubled our workforce? Absolutely not. These roles have come at the cost of some roles that were earlier there in the organization, right? And that is that shift and the evolution that is happening, which to me has been one of the challenges and also one of the opportunities that I've faced in recent times.
Excellent, ma'am. I think you have outlined what looks like a transformation from what it was with people doing a lot of data entry to what you're saying, including prompt engineers. Quite a transformation. I'm sure there's quite a bit of insight behind that. Perhaps in some of the questions it may come out. I'll move on to the next question, ma'am. There is this hypothesis that technology also reduces the cost of sales. In reality, has it done so? What are your analysis and insights?
Yes and no. It's a difficult question. It's a good question, but difficult to answer because it differs from organization to organization and also project to project. So first of all, for example, if it's a change in a total platform solution, okay, and I'm just giving an example, supposing there's an organization that runs on SAP and decides to now move to Salesforce, that is an investment that you have to make today. So today, will you see that reducing costs? No, because it's a CapEx, it's an investment, right? But over time, the idea is that various data sources come together. There's a single source of truth. And with the better data connections, you get better window to consumers or better window to leads and prospects who you can convert. And therefore, your cost of conversion goes down. But immediately, it's an investment. Because not only are you embracing that, not only are you buying that, but you are also investing in training. You are investing in skilling people to use that. So, like I said, it's a yes and a no. In my experience, I've seen, in some cases, it's actually brought it down because, you can scale up content, right? But in some cases, it's actually an increase in cost now, but with the hope that there is a projection of cost. So I won't say reduced, I'll say cost optimized, doctor, because finally for every business is about how much you can optimize, Overall, what is the role of technology? One, of course, is are you getting in efficiencies of cost? So there is no denying that. But the other E, which is very equally important, is also the effectiveness. Is that investment that I'm making leading me to the desired outcome? If it is that, then yes. Sometimes I fear that this whole race to embrace technology is becoming such a relay race or a marathon or maybe a sprint that perhaps we are not looking at what would be the outcome as much as really feeling good about I've embraced technology A, technology B, technology C, technology D in my organization, and okay, I've done my job. It's not that. It's about being very careful about what is my growth objective? What do I need to achieve that growth objective? And what is the technology that best responds to that growth objective? Then we will get the cost optimization that we need. I hope I answered your question.
You have, ma'am. I think you brought in some other dimensions too, and you've highlighted the point that technology is an investment and then training is an investment. And I think you brought in the point of the outcome. It's not just about the cost. There is also a potential value increase. And if you're actually able to reach that outcome with that value increase, then the cost just gets justified. This is what I understood.
Yes, I'll give you another example, right? A lot of times we get questions or we have to field responses to questions like, it's cheaper to make a film that will run on digital, So if you made a TV ad, it'll cost that much, but in digital, you can actually make 10 ads in that same cost. Now, can we make the same ad that would have run on TV at a cheaper rate just because now you are running it on YouTube? Absolutely not, because a film is a film. If I spend 50 lakhs on a film that runs on TV, I will spend that same 50 lakhs to make that film, except the channel. But what digital is allowing us is instead of 5 or 6 films a year, we can now make 5 or 6 films a day, what we loosely call as content, though everything is a content, and we call it always on, right? And therefore, if I have to make 1,000, 2,000, 1,500, 500 pieces of films and content, then obviously we are looking at who are the people and what are the ways in which we can get this out fast. So they are shorter duration, they don't need that kind of a investment. They're made by directors, or they're made by, in fact, people who want to be future directors, who love filmmaking. We've got consumers who love their phones and who use it to make films, etc. So therefore, that way, the cost has come down. So that's another thing to bear in mind, because the first thing to jump is, "Arey, main to abhi TV pe nahi hu to, can I get this very cheap?" So it's not always that right answer there.
Fantastic, ma'am. I think what you're also trying to say is the cake has now increased, and there are more consumers, more shades, more segments, and more producers, more organizations, and therefore the effectiveness dimension the equation has changed. Thank you, ma'am. On your website, you have mentioned a framework: brand experience, customer experience, and commerce as three intersecting circles. You also had enterprise solutions there. Now, can you share your insights on how you solved a client problem using this framework, so that we are able to, it's a very practical framework. So can you share your experience for a client?
Yeah, actually, we do it for all clients. So I'll not mention the client name here, but I'll definitely mention categories, right? So, for example, we work on a beverage brand, like I said, and there, so we start off with brand building, or let's take an automotive brand, for instance, mobility. So you start off with brand building, which is BX, right? And BX is brand experience, which is really about what we are used to. What is the human insight? What is the proposition? What is the brand positioning? What is the creative platform or positioning? What is a creative idea, therefore, and how does it manifest itself in media? What has changed, or what we have added now as VML, is that journey earlier would stop at brand experience, right? And brand building. Now it goes on to customer. So, for example, in the automotive world, once I buy a vehicle, what happens? I become an owner. And because I become an owner, now I'm in the club of owners. All of us own bikes or cars, right? What do? We go for after sales service. We sort of go for spare parts. We upgrade into a new thing, even cell phones, if you look at a category. So now, what is my customer experience for these owners, so that the owners now become active loyalists? And they are the ones who therefore are people who are my active endorsers. That's CX. CX also is the experience that I get when I engage with you as a brand, either on the website or on a platform or at a retail outlet or with a dealer, with a salesperson, with everybody who's a stakeholder. That's customer experience, right? And CX is something which in our organization, we've really sort of invested a lot in frameworks and tools. So for the same automotive category or beverage or any category that we work on, beauty would have this. Then we come to commerce, which is in today's world, especially when it comes to e-commerce, right? So there are two things. Either the journey is completely digital, which is from the beginning where I'm an unknown prospect, to where I drop a lead, to where I convert, to where I have become an owner. The whole journey leading to sales conversion happens digitally and online. We have e-commerce, right? And that commerce is something which, we have capabilities of. Sometimes it may not be e-commerce because the brand may have physical retail outlets where the final conversion happens, right? Then what happens is the journey goes on to digitally up to a point. Sometimes for a brand, it could be 36 points. Sometimes it could be 25 points, the whole journey, So for example, to buy in the automotive category, it's not that I decide to buy today and I buy tomorrow, right? So it has a time frame. It has different. What do? I research. I go to the website. I go to influencers. I check out blogs. I read magazines. I talk to people. So all of these now are different points at which we keep nudging people to go to that point of conversion. The commerce that happens offline is something that we have, retail expertise. And that is where we bring in experience. We call it shopper. And we bring in experience at that retail thing. And then in today's world, we therefore now not try and join. We actually have, how do we join these different data sources? because there's one source of data which has come from media, another which has come from our website, the third one which has now come from maybe dealership or retail. How do we marry these three? What is the best way in which we can bring this together, even if we can't marry at times? So that's really the way in which these three work. What we call as a result of this, doctor, is a connected brand. So today we are very proud in our organization if we have been able to create a connected brand, which is between BX, CX, and commerce. It is one journey, one solution.
That's a tremendous solution, ma'am. I mean, in case you're able to get to that, I can truly feel that it is exhilarating just to see that this is something which is working. And you talked about 36-point model or 24-point model. You're able to define that and then put all this together. Great, ma'am. That is very interesting, and I think there's quite more of we'll get to hear about this much more in the future. The next one, ma'am, is about some trends which are taking place now. You've got ESG for corporates, you've got climate change for all, you've got social equity concerns by governments, you've got increase in the state's role on welfare, particularly in India. Your website showcases some case studies. You know, I noticed the banana boat and I think and seeding songs, which were shown there. And they seem to have some of these characteristics. Now, but those were in situations abroad. Now, if you take the same thing in India and you look at these trends, what are the kind of opportunities in India for the ad industry in such a sector? Is it significant? What can new people look at here?
That depends on category to category, because honestly, for us, we provide solutions for our clients' businesses. You know, we don't create work for ourselves. You know, we are doing it for an industry. We are doing it for this. So overall, is today, you know, sustainability, ethical work, responsibility, responsible communication, is it part of every business and brand that we work on? Yes, that I can say unanimously. But the kind of work we do now depends on that category, you know, and right now, I think it's a little difficult for me to, again, because, you know, I would refrain from talking about brands here in this. But if any student is interested in a one-on-one with me to get a little bit in detail, I'm very happy to talk about that. But I would suffice to say that in today's world, if a brand or a business is not responsible to society, to the environment, you know, to key stakeholders around us, it is very, very difficult, you know. So there's that eternal thing that we talk about. Are we creating shareholder value or stakeholder value? And I think increasingly it is about stakeholder value that really creates a very strong brand today.
Thank you, ma'am. So what you're saying is, yes, there are opportunities, but they are very specific to certain kind of categories. And perhaps if somebody is interested, that they can get in touch with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because there is no one answer we do for everyone, right? Depending on the category, we will come up with what would be the...
But if you look at smaller entrepreneurs who, you know, kind of maybe collaborate with you, or, you know, the MSME kind or the individual kind who give to the same space, do you see opportunities emerging for them?
Yeah, we do. We do. And these opportunities are also, they have a bedrock of technology, which allows us to build those opportunities, you know, whether it's creating a platform, whether it's an idea, whether it's forming a community where everyone can contribute, whether it's something that we can measure in terms of footprint, etc. So that's possible. And a lot of players in our industry are doing this.
Excellent, ma'am. That's heartening considering the kind of people we have in our country and perhaps what they can build upon in terms of skills.
Yeah, I mean, can we do more together as an economy, as a market? Absolutely. You know, when I'm saying that we're doing it, it doesn't mean that, you know, we've achieved great milestones. I feel there's a lot more that everybody can do. Why the industry? That, you know, all of us starting as citizens, we can do. But are we moving in that direction as an industry? Absolutely. Because please remember, we are communication experts, and the power of influence that we have through the work we do is tremendous if used in the right way.
Excellent, ma'am. I think it also reiterates this point that you made earlier, that the value is not just from the agency. There's quite a bit of it which is coming from outside. Thank you, ma'am. I'll take a pause at this stage and hand it back to Professor Rao for the next cluster.
Thank you. I love the questions, by the way. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. It's very interesting. We can probably summarize in a way that right from a management trainee to the CEO level that you handle, I think you straddle all the roles in between. And the way you look at the industry and its evolution is very, very different, in the sense that you have an overview definitely, and also a responsibility of what is called the outcome. I think every answer that you have given just now is steeped into the outcome-based consciousness, and therefore other things actually fall in line if that's mentioned there. Very interesting. I have a couple of questions to take, ma'am, and these are bordering on debate. Therefore, I'll just try and see if we can seek some insights from you. Traditionally, the changes that we have been looking at, noticing, and probably being participant as far as the industry is concerned is in terms of digital versus print or digital versus the rest. Now, there are examples both ways. There are examples that have demonstrated interdependence of all the formats. From your experience and now being at the helm of the affairs, what is your insight? What is your take on the proportion that is advocated for? I'm sure it differs from category to category, but largely it is category agnostic in terms of the way we are reaching out to the customers these days because it's increasingly digital. So how would you proportionate the focus on digital versus the rest?
It differs. I must say, because I've also worked in a regional role. Well, I was based in Bangkok, but my markets were from Australia, New Zealand to Middle East, South Africa, Asian. So I've worked across markets, and even there I found that the degree of maturity, what we call digital maturity, right, it differs. And depending on that maturity, our investments differ. I must say that overall in Asia and definitely in India, the proportion of digital is increasing, but the importance of what we call legacy media is still very much there, especially when it comes to creating new brand awareness overall, okay? Especially when it comes to just creating credibility for a brand. So I'll give you an example. In IPL or any cricket, you'll see a lot of television ads. Now, arguably, why are they spending so much? You can just do a small ad in this, because that the credibility of if a business is spending so much there and this collective sentiment around a campaign that we all like creates brand equity, and that's very much there, especially in, like I said, in countries like Asia, where personalized communication is absolutely happening. But this thing of, am I there in these media where, I create that brand awareness, etc., is equally there. And you'll see it. You'll see it in the importance of TV or print, etc. However, is it a trend that is changing? Absolutely. And yes. And there are categories which, in fact, are going all digital first, what we call digital first categories. Just to give you an example, a lot of fashion and retail, if you are on a platform, you'll just see an ad pop out, and you can click on that. It goes to the marketplace. You can actually immediately buy it. You're done. It comes in your cart. In 2 days or in 1 week, it's delivered to your house. So that it didn't even need it. I mean, so in fact, the buying cycle has changed. I was maybe not in a mood to even buy, I was not in a buying moment or a consumption moment. Maybe I was just watching something on a channel, on a digital channel. And suddenly this thing popped up. It came with a price. And I'm like, okay, let me check it out. The price looks so that therefore, just imagine our original thing of attention, interest, all these models of discover, shop, buy, own, you're actually starting with buy. I didn't even know, for example, that brand existed. Let's make up a brand. Let's say the brand is Raga, and let's say it's about women's churidar kurtas, right? Maybe I'm watching YouTube. I'm from Assam. I'm watching an influencer blog, and I suddenly see this. There's that carousel. I click on it. Okay, what's this brand? I noticed it for the first time, but I like the kurta more. And I'm saying, okay, it's on this marketplace that I trust. Let me just click on it. And then as I click, I've also got another 10% discount because the algorithm has started working now. And I'm like, wow, afternoon over a cup of tea on a Sunday when I was watching a blogger, I've actually went and bought a kurta. It is not a shopping behavior that I would have ever done 7-8 years ago. So therefore, to answer your question, that trend is definitely evolving. So in some categories, we are actually seeing it almost 70-30, 60-40. when it comes to digital, but in some, we are still seeing it as a 30, the reverse, basically. Where is the world moving to? Of course, that we know. It's soon becoming a very connected world, a very connected digital world. But we can't discount the importance of any form of media which gives a brand credibility, scale, and stature.
Wonderful takeaways, ma'am. Thank you very much. So patiently you have explained. Legacy media probably gives you some kind of credibility. It is an added credibility that you require. The reach and penetration, probably digital, and creating some experiences on digital is something very, very unique given the categories. For example, you have taken fashion retail as a very important segment that thrives more on these kind of algorithm-based experiences that we can provide to customers. That's amazing. But more importantly, the takeaway is that the consumption moments that are emerging, evolving, and if you are there at the right time to capture those consumption moments and convert that into sale, that's fantastic. I think only technology could have done that, and not the earlier landscape that we've been dealing with. Fantastic. Thank you very much, ma'am. The second quick question on okay, again, it's bordering on debate, is the first premise is that you are working on BX, CX, and commerce. So the other thing is probably the inside the commerce is RX, the relationship, the retail experience. But the unsaid thing is about the marketer experience, because the marketer is your B2B partner in that sense. The marketer's experience is also very, very important for the agency like yours, for example, which is important. It has to be measured. Not just always measured in terms of the brand's performance, brand's outcome, but is there any other metrics, or do you follow any other model to measure the marketer's experience as well? All the other three were explained very well, but this one is what I am probing into.
Can you talk to me a little more about what you mean by a marketer's experience?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like the way we have the brand experience, like BX, brand building. Similarly, the consumer customer experience, CX. From there, we have gone, taken the funnel to if it is a physical story or retail experience is extremely important, but outcome oriented. Commerce has to happen, whichever way it is. But overall, there is an interesting partner available for us in terms of marketer. How do agencies measure, factor in the MX, the marketer experience, so to say, with your agencies?
So I must admit, I'm not familiar with this. So I'll have to do a little bit of, studying before it, because I don't want to come up with something which I'm not very clear on. But overall, I must say that our measurement matrices are based on two things, right? One is about so just to give an example, a lot of our clients and our work is on what we call NPS, Net Promoter Sales, right? Or how much would I recommend this brand to someone else, right? Now that is basis a scoring that a customer will give you. So, in some, we creatively can call it a happiness quotient. In some, we call it a satisfaction index. We can call it whatever. There are some measures which are very, very hardcore numbers. I have put in 100 rupees or dollars. What is my outcome? And what is the difference? So you see, one has a little bit of subjectivity in it, and the other is very, very strongly 100% market driven. Again, let's talk about focus groups. And I'm diverting a little bit just to also clear my thinking. So for example, we have groups which are quant, where we do only quantitative study, right? When we research concepts. And there are some which we call qual, which are qualitative studies, which are based on focus groups, which are based on what people talk. So a lot of these BX and CX, and what I'm assuming is MX, comes from a mix of these two, But commerce is where we can go hardcore into data, because commerce is all about data. So just allow me to do a little bit of digging into it. I'm very happy to just send you a response, and I'm sure you can share it with the students here.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. It is so interesting to talk to you. It's very easy also to talk to you. I mean, that's something which I am learning here. The other factor is that a majority of the participants today and every week over the last 155 are not students of our institution. Actually, they are working professionals. They are leaders unto themselves. They come from various domains like technology, education, roles like entrepreneurs, roles like educators, roles like people from civil society, people from spiritual world, people from armed forces, all of them joined from around the country, and a couple of them from abroad as well. Ma'am, one last lead, and then I will request Dr. Sagar Reddy to open his mic and ask his question. Of course, bear this in mind when you respond whenever it's possible, is that we have an online MBA program which is completely digital in all the touch points, right from prospecting to even providing the degree, and subsequent alumni experience is also digital. Although we have a large footprint of educational institutions across the country, large format physical campuses, we have about 16 campuses across the country, universities, business schools, tech schools, law schools, so on and so forth. My question is, you have any one or two suggestions for education industry, how they manage their CX and DX with respect to online education programs, which are completely digital in its touch points?
I think if you consider the educational institution as a brand, which it is, right, then we have to look at it as, how do we first off, what is the proposition? What is our, why should people come to my institute versus Institute B and Institute C? That's the first question. So what is the positioning of this institute, number one? And then number two, how do I reach out to the right prospective students? Or in some cases, if I think because it's management, it would be students. If it was younger, I would have even said parents, right? But I think your educational institute, it would be the student who would be the primary target here, right? How do we reach out to them? And what is it that we say when we reach out to them that compels them to come to this institute? For example, do we talk about what we stand for? Do we talk about what are your future career options that are evolving and we have an answer to our needs with our curriculum? Do we talk about the fact that we are very practical and we are not, what do you call it? We are not theoretical alone. It's a great mix of theory and practice, that we get a lot of practitioners from the industry, a lot of placing in the industry while we are doing it as part of the curriculum, so that you get a practical knowledge. I think one of the big things for academic institutions, and I'm so closely involved because, you know, my unfulfilled dream is to be a teacher. And so I do it with talking to educational institutions. And I feel one of the things are that there cannot be a disconnect between what we are studying in an institution and the day we start work. If that disconnect is there, it is very, very difficult for that educational institution to be relevant. So coming to the fact that you are all online, I feel it makes the job done well. It makes the job easier, because the ability to propagate, to reach out to the right TG, to reach out to the right people with the right message is easy. Then comes to the actual education classes itself. And I'm assuming that that is online, you know. There is no taking away from the fact that when I meet somebody face to face, there's something about, you know, just touch, feel, again, not touch, feel in terms of physical touch, feel, but the fact that, you know, there's a board you are writing, there are students, you feel the heat, you feel the cold, the sensorials of a physical world are missing. So how do we therefore make sure that it is very, very engaging? What is the technology that we have invested in as an educational institution to make sure that halfway through the class, the technology does not collapse? Halfway through the class, you can't hear the person, or you can't hear questions, or people can't participate in it. So the investment in the right technology so that it allows a two-way interaction, so that it is a better simulation than what it would have been if it's a physical class, is very important. So that's the second thing. And the third is, what is the way in which we are evaluating assignments? Because if that is also digital, how do you ascertain that the assignments are true to what a student has worked on? How do you ensure that there is a collaborative task force that can be created for some assignments? Because in the physical world, you can do that, right? You just divide people into groups, you give them assignments and you bring them in. Here in today's world, you just open ChatGPT and you put that question, the answer comes in 3 seconds, and you can come back and take rest and come after 3 days and says, yes, our group has cracked this. So what is the way around it and how do we do it? So it's very interesting. I'm myself spending a lot of thought on it. This is the teacher hat I wear over the weekend. So I'm very happy, Mr. Rao, to do a session with you separately on this one.
Wonderful, ma'am. Thank you very much. Actually, Professor Prasad is heading the online programs. He's the academic head for the online programs. Therefore, in case he has any point, he can bring in to ask from our guest.
Sure. I mean, sure. In fact, the points mentioned are extremely relevant. Secondly, the most important being the three questions we need to ask to ourselves. And there, the particularly for the online MBA, it's not students, it's the working executives. So you get into the entire age group, right, from 60 onwards, though most of them will be less than 35. So the challenge always has been when we dealt with just how do you reach the right target group, and then the positioning. Okay, there's something there. As far as the what do we say? Yes, we've got something there. But the second point is something that I find that even today there is a lot of work to be done. So that is a question that we have. The second is in terms of the experience. Yes, you need to bring it out into the learning outcomes. It's not as if these are only positioning points that you'll have to put as measurables in the learning outcome, work it back into the assessment, work it back into the pedagogy and the content, and see that it gets delivered. And then you can put the promise across and make it reality. Thank you, ma'am.
Wonderful. Thank you
Yeah,
very much.
I totally agree. Absolutely. Yeah.
We'll quickly request Dr. Sagar Reddy to raise his question. Over to you, Dr. Sagar.
Yeah. Good evening, sir. Good evening, ma'am. I'm Dr. Sagar Reddy.
Hi.
So basically, I'm into finance area. I have so my major area is into finance. I teach finance courses at IBS Hyderabad. So my quick question is with respect to some ethical practices. See, in the now we are in the digital era, and the data is huge data is available, and with that data, whether the data privacy uh, or the advertising agencies or any institution, uh, how they're working in respecting the privacy of the consumers or end users.
Sorry, thank you for the question, Dr. Reddy, and thank you for making time to attend this session. It differs from, I can only speak about my organization because I'll not be able to, but we are very clear that we only use first-party data and data that has been ratified by the client so that we do not ever invade on the privacy. There are strict rules in place, laws in place. We are all multinational companies where I work on. So that is something which we strictly adhere to. So there is no way, just because some data is available, we will either buy that or go for that, etc. Like I said, it is very, very, very compliant with the laws of the land.
Great. Laws are in place, and we have to.
We are compliant. We are totally data compliant. Yeah. And
Absolutely.
we totally respect privacy. We cannot, because we work with clients who are also compliant. So there's no way we can ever break that. Yeah.
Being ethical is not an option anymore.
It is not. Yeah.
I think Dr. Sagar's point was answered. Ma'am, one for the road. I think I'm allowing Mr. Murali to ask his question. If it is a question, please ask.
Well, actually, my name is Murali. I'm from Vedwak Systems Limited company. It is very nice to listen to you. You are speaking so well about advertising. My question to you is, in your career, because advertising has got a lot of value on impact, what is that actually your effort has given the maximum impact out of the efforts what you have done in your career?
I was just telling somebody today, and I repeat this, Mr. Murali. Is that, am I right in calling you Mr. Murali?
Yes, thank you, please. You are right. You're right.
So, why have I stayed in this industry for 25 plus years, that too in the same organization? It's long hours. It's really hard work. If I look around, you see there are people still in office. It's already 7:40 p.m. We all sort of do that. It's really because the kind of work that we do as an industry leads to behavior change influence. It leads to people embracing new ways of consumption, for instance. So anything that has resulted in either a brand being consumed or being embraced gives me tremendous joy. But,
very good.
But I have something which is additional to that. I truly believe that the power of expression, when used in the right way, Mr. Murali, leaves someone somewhere a little bit better in the day. And every morning when I wake up, I always tell myself that if today, in a small way, what I do, what me and my agency creates for our clients, if we can make somebody's life a little better in a certain way, I'll be very, very happy. And that's my driving force and mantra.
Fantastic, madam. Fantastic. I also have wish to add two more points. Actually.
Yes.
My
sure.
dad was highly passionate about advertising. He worked for a cooperative bank. He was actually functioning as a general manager and in districts. He used to use all his advertising skills. Those days, I'm talking in way back in the 80s, this video has come newly into the market. He went to each and every shop actually in Mehboob Nagar. He did actually the recording of that information. People felt it's a new entity which happened, and a lot of deposits have come into the organization. And he built a lot of jingle spots. Sisters was the company actually in 70s. They were based out of Bombay.
Yes,
So
sisters. Yes.
yeah, he used to take actually support from them, and he got a very good name because of advertising. And it's a great actually sector to play the role. Today, actually, we are scoring, I think, around 1 lakh crore business is happening. I wish a large scale business should happen in advertising. And my country, our country, should scale up to 30 trillion and beyond, not just 5 trillion, madam. I'm looking forward for a great support from experienced professionals of your kind. Thanks for your valuable time, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. It's now about 7:42 and we're going to close that, but just one question, that is, any top of the mind case study where a brand has used traditional storytelling with advanced technology to create what is called a compelling narrative. It may not be brands from your stable, but in general, like a teacher in the classroom, you can give one case study, and with that we'll close.
I think there are lots in India. There are a lot of brands we have in every category. If anyone just Googles top 10 brands, you'll see that it's all based on storytelling. So I'll end by saying that if a brand is not into storytelling, you cannot be a brand, because a brand is a collection of stories and memories. That is all what a brand is.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much for this highly informative, educative, and persuasive talk that you have delivered on ICFAI's WiseViews Leadership Conversations platform. We are immensely thankful to you on behalf of all the participants and everyone on behalf of ICFAI. I would like to thank you for this time and valuable suggestions and insights that you have shared with us. We'll keep in touch. I'm sure your dream, which you said is unfulfilled, although you are teaching in many institutions, shall definitely be fulfilled. And we as an organization would love to invite professors of practice to teach and partner with us in terms of sharing this immeasurable wealth of experience that people like you have gathered. I think that should be shared with the Gen Next, with the youngsters in the classroom, and even with the executives who are already practicing. I think we have many opportunities to look at that. You're currently in Mumbai. We have a business school in Mumbai.
That's right. That's right.
Just in case you move back closer to Assam, we have 5 universities in Northeast: Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, Tripura, Sikkim. But we are in Mumbai and Pune and Bangalore.
I go to Assam like every year, and I used to teach in IIM Shillong. I used to take a whole brand module there. So I do a lot of IIM. So yeah, I would be really happy to.
Wherever you go, we have a classroom, ma'am, to learn and understand and get better. I think that wish of communication industry, advertising agencies, trying to make lives a little better by the power of communication shall always thrive. And I think we should always work on it continuously, both education institutions, industry, as well as leading professionals like you coming together and working on it. Thank you so much, ma'am. You made this Friday a real good Friday for all of us.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for your time again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that was a wonderful conversation. Go to the VML website and look at the leading campaigns that they have executed. The time was not sufficient to actually run some campaigns, but otherwise you will have an educative tour, at the same time entertaining one when you look at this website and look at the campaigns, look at the case studies that they have put in for the benefit of all of us to connect the theory to practice and draw our own insights and use it in our own domains. Keep reading, keep learning, and we'll be back on Friday next, that is 28th June at the same time with yet another leader so that we continue our learning for 156th time, 28th of June, 6:30 p.m. Have a great weekend and good night.